Yo, was good. No more talking from my bed or my phone anymore. I'm here just yapping it up. But I recently went on a late trip and I went with a lot of people that I care about, and they kind of drilled me on reflecting on who I am as a person because I don't know if you've been able to tell from the crashout videos that I've been doing recently, or I call them check-ins because they've just been general check-ins on my mental state, how I'm doing, but I've been cutting off a lot of my friends. My social circles have been changing a lot. By a lot, I mean I think I went from having a bunch of distinct social circles to really having like a handful of people, all distinct people that like I really mess with. And I think I started to think about this because there was a reel that I saw. I know the source of all information that said like people who have a lot of friends don't actually have a lot of close friendships. And I'm somebody who yearns to have a deep connection from someone. And for a long time, I thought this was just basically like rooted in the way that I grew up. I grew up with a very loving family, still have a very loving family, and I hold them very dearly because they always give me a space where I could feel like myself. And that's what I told myself because that's how I felt recently. I think I grew up and I was able to develop a more normal relationship with my parents where I saw them as humans, humans that are figuring things out for the first time, humans that aren't perfect, but humans that did their best to provide me an experience where I could feel safe, where I could grow up and feel loved, and where they gave me all the support that I could, and they didn't want to pass down traumas to me. So they want to develop an environment for me where I didn't feel forced to be a certain type of person, and where I could develop and grow and be comfortable failing. It didn't feel like I had to get my butt whooped in order to get in line. There's where it was like gentle redirection. It was enabling. It was asking questions. It was putting me on a journey of self-discovery instead of one where they forced me into a certain mold or I had to be super successful. Like they did the hard parts so that I could explore and have an easier life and not live with all this pressure and with all this stress, right? So that was great. But when I actually think about how I felt growing up, it didn't feel that way. I felt super pressured to do really good in my academics. I had a rule where I had to explore three things. So I had to have three activities. For a while, that was piano and then two sports. And then I did three sports and then I rotated three sports for a while. And then I got it down to two sports. And then I started like gaming and making like video game content. That was a little bit of a push, right? I put like I think it was $1,000 back then. Built my own computer. Started getting a little bit into hardware. Then I started developing software. And while I was doing that, I was also doing the gaming channel too. So those were so making content, and I turned into like club leadership. But in general, making content like live filming, vlogging, video games, and then had an art phase for a bit. Like I just drowned my wall in like anime tracings. So a little bit of everything, right? This is besides the point. But growing up, I chose a lot of things in which I couldn't. I was competitive, sure, but the things that like, I actually like really enjoyed doing were the things where I felt like I couldn't fail. I was used to being on the B team. I like to spend a lot of time alone training on things. I really liked running because I really feel because I first of all naturally good at it, and second didn't feel like I could mess it up. You know, you just do it. You just execute. It's super simple. It's super straightforward, and this is all defined by a lack of control that I felt as a kid. I loved researching things. I loved reading books. I would read textbooks. I felt like I had to be super prepared for whatever exam popped up. I was scared of competition for a very long time. And even though I was put into competitive environments, I was always in like the crappy ones, right? The ones where like nobody really cares. You're not actually fighting for anything. And this like transferred all the way up the chain where I'm like, I don't like being super confident unless like I have an overwhelming advantage. Like I do worse in competitive situations, and this is something that took a really long time for me to desensitize myself to be comfortable with losing, to be comfortable with giving up this control. And it's a social situation thing too. I don't know if this is a form of like autism. A lot of people tell me they just love to categorize it as autism, but I'm like I feel like I need to map out my friendships. I need to have like these circles, I call them, of things, of phrases, of words that are okay in what situations and things that I can say. And to a lot of people, this comes naturally. To me, this comes naturally at times. Like sometimes I hear something someone says, I'm like, oh, that's weird. But growing up, I hung out with a lot of like really crass people who kind of just spoke their mind, and people just say things, and you hide behind this alias on the internet. I'm talking to myself. There's no like friction. There's no conflict. There's nobody telling me and challenging my ideas. I don't have to read the room and see like when's my time to talk, how long should I be talking, that kind of thing. I'm just talking to myself, right? There's no friction here, and I'm hiding behind an alias, so like there's no accountability either. Like nothing comes back to me. So I always put myself into these spaces in which I felt like I couldn't fail, right? And more importantly, nobody saw me fail, right? If there's failure, there's no observability. If there's a video game, right, you just respawn, you go into a new game. It only sucks when your friends are roasting you, and that's when I start to get angry and I want to get off the game because I can't handle the stressful situations. I can't handle somebody telling me that I suck at something. I can't handle something. I aim trained a lot. Like that's weird. I spent a lot of time in the training range practicing combos that I knew that would work. Like one hit, not one hit KOs, but like 0 to death. Love practicing those combos. Loved having this setup, like shield out of shield option. So, and these are all mediums of control, right? Where you feel like pressured, you feel the need to be able to control your circumstances, like if this and that, if this and that. And this is why I love computer science, right? Where it feels super deterministic in the way that you approach it. And when you have a solution to something, you may not know it at the time, but when you have that solution, it's the same solution every single time. That there's patterns that emerge that you're always going to do, like almost always. And you get to analyze the situation and always have a solution. Like that's a lovely feeling for me. But this is not normal. This is anxious. This is scary. And where this really fell apart for me is with my friendships, it's with my relationships. I wasn't willing to admit it, but I have this need to like feel in control. And when there's a modicum of control in which you need to accept that you're not going to have, right? You can't control how somebody else feels. You can't control if somebody is going to choose you every single day. You can't control that when you get in your car, there's a chance that there's somebody who's just gonna like be crazy driving on the road and boom, just they kill you, right? And it's just over. There's nothing you can do about that. That's risk management, right? There's a certain amount of risk in everything that you do, and that's something you just have to accept. And for people like me, that means you're thinking about what scenarios are going to happen. And when you have fight, when you have tension, I'm not gonna run away immediately. I'm gonna sit here and think and obsess over it and let it control my life and think about every possible option to make me feel more prepared. But what's gonna happen is going to happen, and I'm not gonna be able to control and be able to plan out every single scenario that this person is going to say. And then I got into research because those are controlled environments. Those are deliberately controlled environments, and you can. And you do your little experiment, whatever happens in the experiment happens, and then you get to analyze it post hoc. And it doesn't feel like you can fail that because it's just learning. I like learning. But with my relationships, I mess up. Honestly, I mess up. And with my friendships, I mess up too. And it used to be where I felt super willing to make amends. I was always willing to blow myself into somebody in which somebody would accept and be happy with. And that used to be how I wanted to do things. But eventually, like, friends realize they don't want to be around me, and then it's done, and then it's over, and now I don't have the friend anymore, and usually it was a big old thing, and I just have to come to acceptance with it. I'm like, I thought I applied this rule that I would be able to get along with anyone. I could just mold myself to become somebody who could get along with anyone, and this was backed by my personal experience, where there's a different version of you that plays soccer versus a different version of you that does the running, and a different version of you in the classroom, and a different version of you on the game, and a different version of you in front of your family, right? Like, of course. But I'm not meant for everyone, and that was a hard realization for me to experience, and where I thought that I could be, and I said yes to relationships that I probably shouldn't have, because I was just happy to be accepted, to be chosen, to be loved. And that was before, like, I processed that I had a very loving family, still do, and that they were always going to choose me and accept me, and that I had that clarity. And I think I totally skipped over this, but that need, that value, all of this friend stuff, I ended up putting myself into environments where the success criteria were clear. And where I started to think about this in terms of, like, my own reflection is, like, I grew up in environments where the success criteria was clear because it was traditional, right? The map was You do good in school, you get the good academics, you do the extracurriculars, you lead other people, you impact people's lives, you write about that, you get into a good college, you get the good college, you do it again, you get a good job, right? So I align myself with those values, I do the skills, I do the procedure, right? And what this starts to bleed into my social life is that I define my own success criteria as everybody else's success criteria, and then I just apply pressure to people, right? I have no respect for people that aren't on the same path as me, that aren't doing the same things, that aren't putting in the same amount of effort into the things that I'm doing, because like this is what I was told was the right thing to do, right? When I got a B, I got sat down by my parents. So while my friends are struggling, I don't immediately turn to support. I roast the shit out of them. I'm like, why didn't you study? Why didn't you sleep right? Why didn't you do the work? Why didn't you exercise? Because I had this structure that forced me to have good diet, that forced me to sleep well, that forced me to eat at the right times, that held me accountable with practice always after school, and a family that drove me around everywhere. Like, I had structure that made me a quote-unquote amazing person, like someone worth looking up to. Because I got to college, it all fell apart, man. And I judge people harshly for not being like me. Because they aren't me. They aren't in the circumstances that I'm in. They weren't blessed with the same gifts that made them naturally athletic and that made them like taller than everybody in middle school. I'm average height now. But when I was in middle school, I was like 5'8" and towering over people. But, which isn't that tall. But it was tall in my area. And that turns into pressure. Right? You start to pressure all of your friends. And that's not good for relationships. You don't develop good relationships under pressure. Until my parents told me, which I don't think was true, that all the pressure was in my head, I really did not have a good relationship with them because I always saw them as pressure, as someone to be feared, as the person who's going to be judging me if I did good with my time or not. And I was tired as a kid, man. Like, I was not sleeping well throughout high school. And such a middle class suburban kid problem to have, where like I just felt this need to like hopefully be better than my parents, be better than my siblings, be better than like everyone around me, man. And if I wasn't better than them at something, I said, oh no, don't worry, I'm better than them at something else. And this environment informs how I grew up as a person because I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to put pressure on my relationships by forcing them to become this certain person. But that means that I also am like I'm struggling to find people that I respect. And this is where you talk about fit in college. I'm like, I get along better with the people in my major, unfortunately, because some of them stink, because we have the same values, the same success criteria, all of that. And I get along well with my family because I see them as established people, the people that worked hard, and people that did the traditional path that I chose. And now, clean slate, I don't have that many people that I respect, that I look up to, that I am like fond of, that I value. And, well, that's just where I'm at. And I could become a more accepting person, but I don't want to. Because I can't. Because that's not the life that I want for myself. Like, sure, I can be accepting of other people and their lives, but I want to make quote-unquote great things. I want to make my parents proud. I put this pressure on myself, and that's all that I've ever known, and I'm not willing to give it up. Because it's what gets me to my goals. And frankly, I think my parents are still pressuring me somewhat, but these mechanisms, this lifestyle that I've had, that I was born into, how I was raised, this is what's been informing my crashouts lately. That's all I wanted to talk about. But yeah, that's about it. Anyways, have a good one. As always, enjoy. And I think I'll be making a bit more of these since I am on break and not working for now. But yeah, bye. Uh-oh.